Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So, we're getting pretty close to the end here. About to hit that Thronebreaker title. Only 4 levels left. Today, we're going to go ahead and talk about 6.4.3 and look at the nodes, the boss, what I did to get through it, what mistakes I made, and how you guys can learn from what I did and be even better. Just a reminder, guys, I do have rank 3 and rank 4 6-star champions. I could walk through a lot of this a lot easier than I do. Some of these champions I don't always use as often as I once did, or some of them are ones that I'm just now starting to get around to using a little more, because I wanted to show you guys that, first off, it can be done with 5-star champions. And secondly, that even if you make some mistakes, you don't always have to have the best champions. You don't always have to have an unlimited pocketbook. You don't always have to be able to do this with no revives. Obviously, the less you can use to get through it, the better. My gameplay is by far not perfect, but at the same time, it shows you guys that if I can push through it, making mistakes, so can you. So let's get into it. Let's take a look at the team. Right off the bat here, we were looking at the fact that we had plenty of opportunity to build up our glaive charges. And for Dormammu, Quake is a great option. Honestly, with Hulk's rework, you might look at him as well. There's a few different things to take into consideration, but what you're going to want when you get to Dormammu is a good science champion. The biggest things to keep in mind is you want to avoid champions that inflict bleed, poison, shock, or plasma debuffs. Obviously, you see I do have Wolverine on the team, but he's not in here to do work. He is actually in here for 2 different synergies. Right off the bat, he's in here to work with Corvus and give him the SP2 invulnerability after we get the glaive charge off of a mutant, which we get right off the bat. So that makes that even better for him. And then also on top of that, he comes back into play because for the boss, we are going to switch out Quake for Magneto, which at that point, Wolverine actually puts an additional plus 15% to attack and 15% cost reduction on specials, and then he also increases the crit by 155%. We did bring in Heimdall for the synergy there, and instead of bringing in Loki like we normally do, we brought in Thor Ragnarok because, again, he actually boosts Corvus and gives us an additional 7% on our attack to all our champions. So he actually technically boosts the entire team. So that was another way that we could build the team and do a little bit more damage. Some of these fights you're going to want to be able to do as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible, because some of them, the longer they go, the more likely that you're going to end up taking some severe damage and possibly even going down. Anything we could to boost the team was important there, and having Wolverine in there to synergize with Corvus to start with and Magneto for the end, which we'll talk about that more when we get to the nodes. Right off the bat here, we've got the path nodes. As I mentioned, Clapback. If you inflict a poison, a bleed, a shock, or a plasma debuff, you also inflict it upon yourself, dealing 100% of their attack over 10 seconds. The other one that you need to keep in mind here is Feat of Power, which if they're above 1 bar power, they gain extra fury. If they're above 2, they gain extra precision. And if they're at 3, they gain cruelty. This is something to keep in mind. So the more you can bait out that SP1 and keep them under that full bar of power, the better off you're going to be. Clapback is easy enough to avoid if you're, like I said, don't bring anybody in that's going to be doing poison, bleed, shock, or plasma, and clapback isn't a factor whatsoever. Now, for Sabretooth here, do keep in mind he also has Enhanced Fury and Enhanced Bleed. And then we're going to go on to Sunspot, who has Sun's Going Out, which every 10 seconds he's going to gain an extra flare charge. He also has Enhanced Incinerate and Dismay, which means if you lose your highest hit combo, you will take 10 times the number on your combo as direct damage. After Sunspot here, we go on to Stealth Suit Spidey, who has Enhanced Precision, and he has Catch Thief, which if he evades you, you will get a web cartridge debuff. Also, he has aggressive regeneration, so every 2 seconds he's gaining a regeneration charge that does 25% of health gain of his max health. You can remove that just by striking him, so do be careful. Don't let him build up too many of those, or he'll start healing up quite a bit. After that, we're going to go on to Vision Age of Arcus, who has enhanced crit power. For both of you, it's not just for him, but also on top of that, he has enhanced armor break. Next, we'll go on to OG Vision here, who has poison and increased stun duration. He also has extra power gain, so keep those in mind because he's already got a decent amount of power gain. So you're going to want to be baiting out his SP1, but you're going to want to make sure you don't get caught by it because, of course, remember, his SP1 does drain your power bar as well. So be careful on that one. After that, we're going to go over to Agent Venom, who has Enhanced Bleed and Enhanced Incinerate. We'll go from there to Gwenpool, who has Enhanced Bleed and Enhanced Armor Break. From there, we're going to go on to Proxima Midnight, who has Enhanced Special 1, Increased Stun Duration, and then also on top of that, her first hit of any special, if you get caught with it, will drain your entire power bar. Doesn't matter where you're out, how much power you have, it'll drain it all. So it's bad enough avoiding those specials, but make sure you're avoiding that first hit at minimum. After that, we're going to go on to the Dormammu fight, who is the mini boss for the level, the one that's given everybody the links there. He obviously has normal, enhanced health, but from there he has Outlast, which is going to give him damage reduction up to 25% based off of his missing health. So the more you take him down, the harder it's going to get to take him down. Next, he also has the Split Atom, which means that any champion that is not a science champion will take a 50% reduction to their attack, which is why, like I said, you want to make sure you have a good science champion in on your team no matter what. I brought in Quake because I hadn't really used Hawk too much at this point, and we were going to obviously go with Quake and Bake. You're going to see I don't do it perfectly the first time, but you'll see a more clean version of Quake and Bake when I do finally take him down. The other thing to keep in mind is that after any of his specials, he does become unstoppable and has a 25% chance of evade for 5 seconds. So do be careful after any of his specials are fired off because it's going to be a little harder to hit him and a lot easier for him to hit you. Lastly, we're going to go over to the boss node, which is Darkhawk for this level. He has a few things to keep in mind here. He has Force of Will, which is going to give him immunity to ability accuracy reduction. Also on top of that, his specials cost 50% less, so it's going to be a lot easier for him to set off specials. So you're going to be wanting to bait those specials quickly because he's going to be charging up quick. So it's really easy to end up pushing him into the SP3 if you're not careful about it. Also, he has Hurt Locker, which if you use the same special twice in a row, you are going to get a delayed blast charge. And if you do not remove that by landing a heavy within 5 seconds, you will take 50% of your max health as direct damage. So 2 times of screwing that up and you are done. So avoid firing off the same specials over and over again. Lastly, he has the Lionheart, which, as far as that goes, just make sure you're not bringing in anybody that does that blocks regen or reduces his regen, and you're fine. You'll ignore that as well. Okay, guys, that's the nodes. That's who you're going to be facing. This is a fairly easy path if you can pay attention to who you're using, pay attention to what the nodes are. Occasionally, I have messed up on that, and we'll take a look at that now. So let's go ahead and get into it and see how these fights went for me. So as I mentioned right off the bat here, we have Sabretooth, which is a great chance to get that first glaive charge. I have learned a few extra techniques for Corvus since recording these that I never picked up on. Corvus is one of those champions that when I first got him as a 5-star, I didn't use him very much because I didn't really understand his ramp up. But I had so many people in my alliance that were like, you're sleeping on him. He's the best champion in the game. You need to get him in there. Start learning how to use him. So I started working on that, and I got pretty attached to him. He carried a lot of the work for me, and especially after I figured out that throwing in the Loki Heimdall synergy, which obviously we're using the Thor Ragnarok version of that Loki Heimdall synergy. I got pretty attached to the champion, but I got pretty stuck in my playstyle of it. I have learned since that there is a bit better way to deal with him before you get those charges on, and I will keep that in mind for future fights, but obviously these were recorded before I learned some of those techniques. It took us a couple times here. I wasn't fully paying attention to the nodes, so I was letting him get too much built up, and that made him a lot more powerful. But eventually we did heal all the way up, come in here, and we took this particular one here. As you saw there, we're already going to be 2 revives into our first fight here before we even get onto the path. That's one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind too. Set yourself a limit. Know how many revives you have available. Know how much potions you have available. Know how many units you're willing to spend on a level. Even if you make some mistakes right off the bat, be willing to go back in and continue on. Don't necessarily, like I said, feel like that you have to do this on 0 revives. Yes, there are plenty of people in our community. As you can see, I'm on a 3rd revive here, and we almost had him going into that, which is always frustrating. But like I was saying, just because there are so many people in our community that can do this in no revives and walk straight through it, doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. You don't have to be perfect to get through these paths. Just make sure that you have yourself a good buildup of supplies. Know what the nodes are. Know who you're facing. Know what you need to be careful about. And be willing to make a mistake once in a while. It doesn't mean that you have to start all over and do it all over again. Okay? And definitely if you're far enough into the path, don't just walk away if you're still getting a chance to do it. Obviously, there are some fights out there that you want to be very careful about that. If you're a great example, as we're getting closer to the end here, if I were to put out the raw footage of my fight against the Grandmaster, not a single one of you are going to watch it. Not because it's not entertaining, not because it didn't cause me so much frustration, but because between breaks and not getting him down and things like that, 646 took me nearly 4 hours to complete. And as much as I appreciate every one of you, I would never expect any of you to watch a 4 hours solid of me just trying to get through one level, being the fact that a good portion of that is that one fight. If it gets to that point, if you're getting to the point that you're just going through unit after unit after unit, potion after potion after potion, revive after revive, and not getting there, that's when you can walk away and come back. Figure out what your mistakes are. But don't give up just because you're not doing it perfectly. Okay, as you can see here, we are a few revives into this. Obviously, just getting to Vision Arcus here, we went through Stealth Suit Spidey fairly easy. Vision Arcus, we had him almost down before we had to come back in. Then we went into the OG Vision fight here. This one was one that we were just about to get, and then he got that instant power gain up to that SP3, and I mean, it's hard to counteract that. So we went ahead and revived, came back in, and finished him off. Fairly straightforward here. Then we went on to the Ancient Venom fight here. This one, we did not heal up for. We probably could have and done it a little better. One of the things that I did notice as I was going through and checking the recordings on this one, there were far too often that a healing up would have probably got me through the fight, but instead all I did was revive. Some of these fights are really not a walkthrough with no help type thing unless you're doing really well and you're really in the groove. It can be done. There are plenty of people out there in our community that have done it. I'm not one of them, and I don't expect every one of you to be either. As you can see here, we didn't have to revive for the Gwenpool fight, but I should have revived for the Proxima Midnight fight here. Trying to walk in on her was a bad idea, and she pretty well made sure we understood it. We didn't get much down off her before we had to revive, heal back up, and come back in. But all in all, after that, we were able to go ahead and take her down, finish her off, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the Dormammu fight here in just a second. You can see. Now, as you can see, I said, my first go with Dormammu, and actually my second as well, I did not quake and bake well. Being in the corner is not the problem. It's keeping him out of that corner while you're in it. You need to be in the corner so you can build up those charges easily, but it's that timing to keep him back off of you that occasionally we all miss at. I know there are perfect Quake players out there. I am not one of them, and I don't expect to be one of them, but I do really well with Quake quite often. Some people may say this one is not a great example of that, but you'll see here I go down one more time and then come right back in and finish him off. This one, more ideally, we barely take anything off of him, but we are able to keep him off of us pretty well consistently at first, which gets us just enough of those charges build up that we can just go ahead and finish him. As you see there, I told you I switched out to Magneto for this final fight. I brought in Corvus initially because of he's already got all 4 of his charges between going through Sabretooth, Stealth Suit Spidey, and OG Vision. So he's going to be doing his max possible damage here, especially with the extra bonuses on there from having Wolverine on the team and having Thor Ragnarok on the team. So that does us great. Plus, on top of that, with Magneto on the team, he gets an extra bonus as well. And I knew, worst case scenario, my goal was to do as much with Corvus as possible. And if I had to, I would finish him with Magneto. We brought Magneto in. Right off the bat, we went straight for the aggressive. We didn't get our prowess charges built up. But then we were able to get back off of him after we got that first prowess and started getting those built up. Unfortunately, in the process of which we were able to end up taking an SP3, but because of the fact that we had full health, that really wasn't a problem. The Heimdall synergy there saved us, and I got up to my own SP3, and that's all she wrote, folks. Right there, that's not the cleanest, but we did finish it up. We did get through. You guys got to see a great opportunity of how to do it yourself, and you can see now we're down to 3 levels left to go. And from there, we will be continuing on. We'll have those out first part of next week. Tomorrow we'll be going live, and Monday we'll have the crystal opening, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we'll be finishing up the last of these levels. Make sure you guys are getting into those side quests right now. They're definitely going to help you, and I will see you guys back for the next one. Peace out.